Hey everybody, Ben here for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Blood Bowl Formations Vampire Setups. So we're looking at all the teams available in Blood Bowl 2020, whether they're from the rulebook, the Teams of Legend PDF, or the expanded NAF teams. And we're looking at some ways you can put them on the pitch. Whether you are kicking or receiving, we're going to look at some formations for this team and give you some ideas of where you want to place your troops and why. Now, if you're planning on playing vampires or playing against vampires, this should give you a couple of tips and tricks to be aware of where to put some dudes and where not to put some dudes. Now, vampires are a really interesting team. They got put in the Teams of Legend, and they got a couple of tweaks that made them play very differently than how they do on Blood Bowl 2 and how they used to in Blood Bowl 16. Now, they've also just had a made-to-order team come out for them, which does lead us to believe that these vampires are going to stay these vampires for a little while longer. Now, we're talking potentially a year. If you look at the Games Workshop release schedule, we are probably now expecting the vampires to be landing at the end of 2022, probably. I'd love them to land sooner, and I'd love them to get some more interesting positionals, but as they are, they're still quite a cool team. So, let's have a look at some vampire setups. So when it comes to vampires, there are only two different types of player on this team. You've got the linemen, who are movement 6, strength 3, edge 3 plus, armor 8 plus guys. They are fine. They are perfectly fine. They come in at 40k a pop, I think, and they're there to get punched around by the vampires when the vampires have their little tantrums. Now, the vampires are the real reason that you play this team. They are very cool players. They're strength 4, edge 2 plus. They're even past 3+, which for non-thrower players is remarkably good. The downside is that they have animal savagery, so when you start their activation, unless they are blocking or blitzing, you got to roll a 4+. Now, if you're blocking or blitzing, it's only a 2+. So these guys being in combat is good for you. The fact that they are strength 4 is good for you. The fact that they are armor 9+, and regeneration is also not bad for you. So these guys want to start their activation in base contact with a lineman if you want to guarantee they activate. If you go for a move or a pass or a move or pass or handoff or action with these guys, they need to roll a 4+. If they fail that, then they lose their tackle zone. They stare into the sky in a frenzied rage, and they just do not count as being on the pitch. That is quite bad for you. So the way around that is if you stand anybody next door to them, anybody, a vampire or a lineman, anybody friendly anyway, friendly as far as Blood Bowl goes, you can punch them to the ground. You knock them down, roll their armor, and maybe they die, maybe they don't, but then you can go and do whatever. So having a lineman in there as a punch bag, even a vampire, to be honest with you, next door will guarantee that action. So if you need to blitz with that vampire, having somebody next to him means you will get that blitz. He just on a 1 will randomly smack your friend to the ground. Now, unless that friend is stunned, they can still get up later, but it's a bit aggravating, isn't it? So when we've built these defenses and these offensive setups, we're going to see a lot of vampires being buddied up. And we'll begin here with the anchor defense. So the anchor defense is a solid defense when it comes to Blood Bowl. And the reason for that is what you're doing is you are giving your opponent the line of scrimmage to win. You're saying, here's 3 dudes, knock your socks off. Then you've got a protected element here. So 3 guys on the line, 3 of your linemen. Then you've got an edge lineman on either side. That guy there is to take the brunt of 1 blitz from your opponent. They are going to block, and potentially swoop down here and get a cheeky 2-die block on this lineman. Now, that's where the fun begins, because that is going to hand over to you on your team with 1, 2, 3, 4 potentially, because I'm assuming you're rolling the 4 vampire build. 4, I think it is, 4 vampires, 4 rerolls. It may not be the right build, but I think it's the one that gives you the most fun. And then you can see we've got this little network of victims here for vampires. So if they blitz that dude, they may end up in base contact with your vampire. He's only going to need a 2+ anyway, but if he doesn't want to do it, he can just knock this guy down to the ground. Then you can stand that guy up if he's not dead. And then you've got 1 vampire, 2 vampire in combination with 2 victim linemen. And then you've got this vampire who's in combination with another 2 victim linemen. So the whole point here is that when it comes to your turn and you need to do reactive blitzes and reactive blocks, you've got your 4 best players, these 4 vampires who are 4 strength and edge 2+. They can get wherever they're going, and they have got at least 2 victim victims on either side of them. So alright, if this guy takes out this guy, then this guy and this guy have only got one dude, that's fine. Then you need to stand him up, or you've got to choose your activations carefully. And when it comes to vampires, you have always had to choose your activations carefully. Now you're just front loading. You have to choose where they are at the beginning of their activation instead of the end. So in this anchor defense, you get this guy down here to blitz, this guy to the blitz left and right on those two pieces, and this guy can go blitz upwards. You've got 4 strength 4 Ag 2+ players with support, so if these guys aren't in a position to be eaten, they could very well come along and give you that +1 assist. Basically, you're going to have one really good turn where all of your vampires can activate exactly how you want them to activate, and once they are strength 4 and in base contact with your opponent, it is kind of your opponent's problem to deal with. Then we've got the Chevron Defense. So the Chevron Defense is another commonly used Blood Bowl formation because the positioning of the troops creates the most interlocking of tackle zones. This one here is really good for playing against agility teams. The Anchor Defense is great for playing against teams that are going to outbash you. This is good for teams that are going to outdash you. Now the reason for that is you can see the interlocking here of the players' tackle zones creates this big old wall, this chunky boy wall of tackle zones, which your opponent is going to have to try and find a way to go through. Now this is your reserve line, and then obviously you've got these guys on the line of slaughter. Now those guys are done for, but you can see the only vulnerability is straight down the neck here, and to get there they have to clear out all 3 of your linemen. This is a dash team. They may be able to do that, but if they do, they're going to be committing 5 or 6 dudes to your front line. 5 or 6 guys against your 3 means that you end up with 8 players against their remaining, 6 or 7? That gives you a numbers advantage. And when you've got vampires on defense, strength 4 gives you probably a strength advantage against these agility teams. So what a fast team will normally attempt to do if they want to go for a quick touchdown against the Chevron defense is tag, block. However, vampires are strength 4, so they're going to need to find a strength 4 or 5 piece to swing in here to block. That's fine. If they've got that, they've got that. Blood Bowl 2020, that's only likely to happen if they've saved up 18 SPP and rolled 16 to get that sweet +1 strength and then paid 80k for it. Not likely to happen. However, Chaos aren't going to be doing this. Okay, 6 movement with a 5 movement with the Chaos Warrior isn't going to get them all the way down there and deep enough to break through. Skaven may have the Rat Ogre. Now they can go for an edge blitz with the Rat Ogre, and you know what, that's fine, because once they come down here and take this guy out, if they do, and you survive, which you should do, you've got reasonable armor and regeneration, you're going to have a lineman and a lineman here. This vampire is going to be able to automatically activate against this guy. If they blitz this vampire here, this guy is going to get marked at worst. Okay, that's the worst. This vampire will be able to have a 2+ blitz, and if that fails, they can just knock this dude down. So wherever they come through, if they do bring enough strength to bust through here and set up a side cage, this Ag 2+ vampire with strength 4 is going to be able to automatically just run in there for a blitz and start pressuring the edge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Vampires aren't the fastest, but they can cover a ton of the pitch. So you will have a vampire ready to play linebacker here, whichever way they go. And that's the great thing here, is having that 1 point extra of strength set up here next to the sideline. It makes it much harder for agility teams, because beating strength 3 is easy. You take your blitzer and you take 1 support, fantastic. Beating strength 4 is really difficult, because you need your blitzer and 2 supports, and please tell me where they're going to be. You're going to need 2 dodges to get in there. Okay, they put a support there and then a 1 dodge to there to get a support. They can do it and they can do that, but that is risky, and you are forcing them to roll more dice. And more dice is not more better. And then there's the offense. So, straight up, vampires in the olden days, you'd put a vampire in the backfield to make the use of their Ag 2+. With Bloodlust, you could pick up the ball. As long as you ended your turn next to somebody, everything was going to be peachy. Not the case anymore. So when it comes to offense with vampires, they are best used to maim your opponent. It minimizes your failure rate of dice, which therefore minimizes the opportunity for your vampires to hurt your players. Your main guys are going to have to do the lifting of the ball to start with. Now you can put a vamp, so we'll immediately go in there. You can put a vamp on the sweet spot next to one of these guys. So you can happily drop one of these guys down here. Okay, you can put him in the middle, and then you can absolutely have that guaranteed vampire 4+ activation to pick up the ball and then knock a dude down. But that seems quite reckless when you're on the offense, because a 3+ with a reroll is probably fine to pick up the ball. Now when it comes to the 5-4-11, we have stacked the line quite heavily, and normally we have it a little bit more spaced out. But if you again look at the tackle zones here, you can see that we've got a full lineup. That means your opponent cannot take option of a blitz kickoff roll without at least trying to blitz one of your players out. Now that's probably not going to massively stop them, but again it forces them to make those dice rolls. So the 5-4-1-1 gives you 5 guys on the line, 4 in your flex role, okay, where they can support blitzes or come back to protect the ball, and then 2 as your collection team. Now if you stack them linearly above the line, above the sweet spot, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So no matter where the ball lands, this is the ball, you can get a player on either side of it basically to max those tackle zones out before you pick it up. If you just need to secure the ball, you can do that with 2 tackle zones and you're good to go. Then you've got 2 linemen on either side. Now they're a little bit closer than they would normally be, and the obvious reason for that is we've got vampires. But these linemen here can come down and support. They can come and screen, or they can flip up here and support with a blitz if that's what you want to do. The whole point of those is they are flexible. They can drop back to protect, or they can up to engage. Now we've tucked these guys here next door to your line of scrimmage, but just a little bit back, and the reason for that is to make the most of those vampire blocks. Now you're probably not going to need it because these guys are now blocking on a 2+. So vampire block, vampire block, vampire block, vampire block, whatever it takes you. It should all be 2+, but if you want to absolutely guarantee that it's going to work, you've got a lineman here supporting these 2 vamps, and you've got a lineman here supporting each of these vampires. So you have got one dude ready to get punched in the face by a friendly vampire to make sure that your block happens. So it's down to you whether or not you want to take it, and if you fail, you can say, actually, you know what, let's, well, no, you can't. If you're standing next to somebody, you're going to get punched. So having these linemen here gives you the option to not punch the vampires. Now, there is an argument that because the vampires are armor 9+ and regeneration, that it's not the worst thing in the world to punch those vampires, because they are going to probably survive. But if you were playing any other team and you got an option to remove a lineman or one of your strength 4 players, what would you do? Strength 4 adds 2+ players. You would take the lineman. Okay, now it is entirely possible that you are going to lose 1 or 2 linemen to your opponent, and potentially 1 or 2 linemen to yourself. So as the game develops, your vampires may just get more angry and do less things. That is fine, that's part of the game. Don't forget to use your blitz action to pick up the ball. If you don't want to blitz, it's fine. Okay, 2+ to get that vampire motivated to go and then 2+ that ball somewhere is a fine use of the blitz action. You also have Hypno Gaze. Okay, and Hypno Gaze got better in this edition because if you turn off their tackle zones, they lose their skills as well. So if you want to take out that War Dancer, move a dude up, Hypno Gaze him, then pound him to the ground. Anyway guys, thank you very much for watching. I cannot wait to see what Games Workshop do with vampires. I am a little bit bummed out that it's going to be a year or so before we get to see it. But hey, we've still got a pretty good team and a pretty fun team to play with for the time being. And you know what, that's a lot more positive than the last time I made a video about vampires, because I've come around to them a lot. Animal savagery is actually a pretty great skill, and you can play around it, and that's what these setups are here to represent. Anyway, I'm going to disappear. Thank you very much for watching. Happy biting. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the show even further, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Or come and join us in our Patreon, link below, where you get early access to our content and monthly competitions. See you later.